So, just what are the consequences of the climate crisis? Notice that I said are rather than will be, as the consequences of the crisis are now sadly here, and more are arriving daily. The fact is that there are many, many consequences appearing across the planet. The documentary Fire in Paradise looks at just one: wildfires caused by drought conditions exacerbated by the climate crisis. In fact, it looks at just one such fire. Unlike many of the documentaries that we are watching in this class, this film does not focus on the climate crisis, at least in the sense that it does not survey the problem or offer solutions. To the contrary, while Fire in Paradise does spend some time addressing the climate crisis, the focus is rather on the horrific consequences for one Northern California town. Consequently, if you didn't first watch this little blurb of mine, you might wonder why I even included this film in a course on the climate crisis. Fair enough. When the climate crisis first entered into the public imagination in the closing quarter of the 20th century, we generally referred to it as global warming and saw the potential consequences in these terms. In other words, the big concern was sea level rise. As nearly half of the world's population lives on or near the coast, sea level rise was rightfully an issue of great concern. However, for the other half of the world's population, it often seemed like an issue of far less immediate concern. Moreover, it seemed rather far off to many Americans, not only in the sense of being far off in time, decades from now, but not much of an issue close to home in the United States. The countries that would suffer, like the island nation of the Maldives in East Asia, where the average ground elevation is just 1.5 meters, seem pretty far away to most Americans. And since scientists were predicting a gradual increase in sea level rise, it seemed like we would have time to respond, perhaps by building levees and other infrastructure. We now know, however, that not only will climate change bring about many more changes than just sea level rise, but they will come far faster than we imagine and hit closer to home, regardless of where your home is on the planet. Since this course is taking place in California, I thought it appropriate to consider the impact that it was having here, now, in California. 4 of the 5 largest wildfires in California's history happened in the past decades, the teens. One of them, the Thomas Fire, happened here in Santa Barbara just 2 years ago. At the time, it was the largest wildfire in California's recorded history, though now it has been surpassed. We could approach this from a statistical, scientific perspective. Doing so would reveal that we are in the midst of an ever-worsening situation with respect to wildfires in California. What does this mean in human terms? As we are approaching the climate crisis from a human, cultural perspective in this class, this is an important question. The documentary Fire in Paradise takes it up. As it turns out, I can also address this question personally, as the Thomas Fire came to within almost a mile of my house. At one point, it was spreading at over 1 acre per second, which is absolutely astonishing. The smoke was so bad that I needed to leave town, as I was very concerned for my daughter and her young lungs, as she was just a toddler at the time. It was an emotional moment when we left, as it was not at all clear that we would have a home to return to. Fortunately, our home, as well as the city of Santa Barbara, was spared. Unfortunately, many people in nearby Montecito also thought that the danger was over, only to be caught in mud and debris slides a month later. Because vegetation had been burned by the Thomas Fire, there was not sufficient plant and root structure to deal with an extraordinarily unusual weather event when 1/2 inch of rain fell in a 5-minute period. Because this downpour took place at 3 a.m., many people were not even aware that it was happening. In some places, the debris flow was over 15 feet in height, moving entire boulders with it. At the speed of up to 20 miles an hour, it was just impossible to run. Over 20 people lost their lives. In some places, the debris flow continued all the way down to the ocean, creating a major interstate to be closed. That's Route 101. Because it deposited nearly 12 feet of mud, water, and debris on the 101 in some places, it was closed for nearly 2 weeks. Having burned over 280,000 acres, there had never been anything like the Thomas Fire in recorded history of California. However, just half a year, the Ranch Fire surpassed it, burning nearly 500,000 acres. Astonishingly, The ranch fire will be surpassed in the same year by the Camp Fire, which is the subject of the PBS documentary Fire in Paradise. Surpassed not in the sense of burning more acres, which it didn't do, but rather being the most destructive fire. In fact, it was the most destructive natural disaster in 2018, not only in California, but worldwide. In addition, it was the deadliest wildfire in California history. The documentary Fire in Paradise puts a human face on the climate crisis, which will impact all sorts of people across the planet in all sorts of ways. Although some people, climate change deniers, would like us to believe that the climate crisis is just scientists wildly speculating on the future, incidents like the Thomas and Camp Fire make clear that the climate crisis is all too real and that it is here, now. Even in sunny California, even incredibly wealthy parts of California like Montecito, where scores of celebrities have their homes. I'm curious to hear what you think, as well as how you feel about all this in the documentary Fire in Paradise. As something of a postscript, as I'm writing this in the week of January 2020, and now recording it, wildfires are burning across Australia. Currently, over 12 million acres have been burned. Of the 20 largest wildfires in California history, 15 took place in the 21st century. The fires burning in Australia are 4 times as big as all these 15 wildfires combined. Let me repeat that. 4 times as big as the 15 largest wildfires in California history combined.